gardener then, darling? Ladies and gentlemen, Raina Hirsch.
No doubt about it, that was a gas. Talking about gas, most of us take it into our homes every day. We can't see it, but we always know it's there. It's got no temperature, but it does keep us nice and warm. Common or household gas. Nothing special about that, you might think. But on closer inspection, you'll be amazed at just how much ingenuity and technical skill it takes to bring it to us, ready to use the snap of a finger. Here's how it's done.
A flick of a switch, the spark of a match, and the heat is on. As they say, that's the beauty of gas. Heating homes or fueling furnaces, 19 million of us depend on it, and 20,000 people work day and night to get it to us. The story begins millions of years ago. Back then, Britain was covered by a swampy tropical forest. When the trees died, they decayed into a mixture of oil and gas. This became embedded in rocks and eventually buried beneath the sea.
Today, the gas is trapped more than 3 miles down, and that's the first challenge, finding it. Geologists study the layers of rock, and by bouncing down sound waves off these layers, they can pinpoint the exact position of the gas. Then they drill deep down under this massive platform and pump it ashore through miles of pipes like these. But before the gas is sent on its way, they have to do various things to it. The first stop is at one of these massive terminals, where the gas is cleaned and dried.
Next, they make sure that the flame will be exactly the same in every house. So when we cook at, say, gas mark 5, it always burns with the same intensity. They check that out in the calorimeter room. Here they measure the energy levels or calorific values of the gas by burning it and calculating how much heat is given off. If the readings are too low, they mix in other gases until the levels are consistent. Before the gas continues on the next part of its journey, they add an odorant to give it that familiar smell. And that's where these guys come in. They're known as calibrated noses. Here in a specially sealed chamber, they sniff a sample of the gas to check if it has the right strength of smell. It's a vital job because it's the smell that warns us gas is there.
With the gas now clean, mixed and smelling just right, they can move it anywhere in the country via 250,000 kilometers of pipes. How? With more than 40 of these enormous jet engines, they can shove the gas along at 25 miles per hour. In fact, they can move 3 tons of gas every second. They store a lot of it at plants like this, where the gas is cooled down into a liquid. So it's ready to go whenever it's needed. And incredibly, they know exactly how much we need, when we need it, and where we need it. How? That's done at system control, where Eric Fowler is one of the men in charge.
We have to carefully match the supply and demand of gas. We get weather forecasts directly from the Met Office, and we feed those through computer models to predict how much gas people will need. Now, we include in those computer models things like the temperature forecast, but we also put in other things like what we call miserability factor. That's if it's going to rain. People get cold and wet, go home and turn the heating up.
Eric and the team send the gas on its way to one of these, a gas holder. You've probably noticed them on the outskirts of towns. They go up when the gas is pumped to them and down when your local gas company takes it out.
But all this activity can make the pipes a bit grungy.
OK, we're ready to launch the pig.
OK, ready for launch.
And believe it or not, this is how they make sure the gas keeps on flowing. They send pigs in to clean the pipes. Who'd have thought it?
People always find it rather funny when we talk about putting pigs inside pipelines. We have to explain that it's not something cruel and they don't need to phone the RSPCA.
The pigs are forced along the pipes by the pressure of the gas. OK, so they're not real pigs. These pigs are huge balls weighing half a ton each, which can push half a mile of water and gunge in front of them. Back at base, the team keep an eye on the whole system, day and night. So wherever we live and whatever the conditions, we'll always get the gas we need.
Now we know how much people rely on a gas supply. From the hugest industries to a granny in a flat somewhere. People need the gas to keep warm. We work very hard to keep that gas going. The country relies on us.
So the wheels of industry keep on turning and our home fires keep on burning.
Well, in a break from tradition on the BBC, it's time for a commercial break.
Tomando cada día bio de Danone y renovarás tu equilibrio interior para sentirte tan sano y feliz como el primer día. Bio de Danone con bífidus activo.
Now that was interesting, wasn't it?
Well, it's a technique that's being used more and more in adverts and on television. It's a famous fairy story come true. And there's no camera trickery here, no computer capers either. These little charmers really are underwater and really swimming. But how? Answer, someone has to teach them. Someone like Lauren Heston, once a water babe in her own right, the grown-up kind, working as an underwater model.
I've always had a big passion for the water, and I worked on films and commercials as part of a dive team. And then I worked on a commercial in 1986, which kind of changed the way I looked at most things and certainly changed my career.
In the commercial, Lauren met a tiny baby swimming happily in the Red Sea.
I just couldn't believe it. I was just completely overwhelmed.
And it was at that magic moment that Lauren knew she wanted to teach babes to swim underwater. That's what she's doing here with tiny Joe. First step is to introduce him gently to the water. The temperature is at body heat, 35 degrees, and that makes him completely comfortable.
If you take a baby into the water that's very young, they have no conscious feelings about water. They don't realise that it's a dangerous environment. Whereas an adult, we'd have that fear. Or even as an older child, there might be some fear of the unknown. But only if a parent or a carer is panicking about it do they then transmit that fear to the baby.
This bit is fun, but it's also the way the baby gets to know and trust Lauren before the lesson starts for real. Then Joe begins to learn the basics of swimming. Things like leg kicking and grabbing the rail for a breather.
Well done. Well done.
But how do babies stop themselves swallowing water when they're fully submerged?
As a baby or an adult, we have a function called the diving reflex, which as we go underwater goes into operation. This is mainly called the epiglottis, which is a muscle at the top of the airway, which will close off. And even if we try to breathe in underwater, we can't.
Joe's now ready for his big underwater debut.
Before we do this, we do a couple of signals on their head. We say, ready, go. Ready, go. This is a little warning to Joe that he will be swimming under. And so very, very gently, and with a full submersion, we say, Joe, ready, go.
Joe is learning tactics which could even save his life should he ever accidentally fall in the water.
Ready, go, turn. And as Joe's under, a little twist back to me. Well done. Well done. One little girl fell into a lake last year. She was a year old, but because of the training, she knew how to turn back to the side. She knew how to kick up and reach out and hold on. So the safety aspect is very important. Off we go then, Joe. Big kicks. Ready, go.
This is Joe's big moment. His first underwater solo. Straight to a very proud mum.
Well done. Well done.
This little fella's a bit more advanced. He's into commercials. He's doing an ad for yogurt, with Lauren and her longtime colleague, ace underwater cameraman Mike Valentine.
Initially, I was almost too scared to film them because I was so worried. Lauren put my mind at rest, as well as the mothers who are happy to let their child be taken into this alien environment.
Alien environment? This little tiddler looks like he lives underwater. But how do you get pictures like this?
The trick of getting that amazing shot is patience. On some shoots, we've had over 18 babies, only to get one baby and for me to capture that one moment.
I've worked on some really, really lovely films and lovely commercials, but nothing compares to actually being in the water with new life. And if we can make beautiful films from that, that's even better.
Hey, gang! I hear we got some new competition down here. Guy by the name of Joe. Look out, here he comes. Right now, Eamon, you know when you take some photos and then you have that reel of film developed and you get the photos back and some of them are blurred?
Some of them are, yes.
And that's because either you or the people you've taken the photograph of have moved. Annoying, isn't it?
Very annoying, Esther. Very, very annoying. And if that is a problem, think of what it's like, Esther, to take a photo from 100 feet up, travelling at 500 miles an hour. Because if you were in the RAF's 41 Fighter Squadron, that would be your job every day. And just to add to the pressure, people's lives might depend on you getting it right.
Warfare is a very fast business. The hardware of battle is moved swiftly from one location to another, and in order to do their job properly, the peacekeepers have to know what's where. So how do they do that? With good military intelligence, aided by pictures like these. Modern aerial reconnaissance offers the enemy photo opportunities they can't avoid, even if they wanted to. There's no hiding place for those secret missiles, nor private palaces of beleaguered tyrants like Saddam Hussein. 41 Fighter Squadron is the RAF's reconnaissance intelligence unit. They take shots that put even high-tech satellites to shame.
We can take pictures that span miles and miles, which we can use for mapping, or we can take pictures narrowing down to your house, narrowing down to your car, and then we could take photos of yourself outside with your dog in the front garden.
So how is it all done? Like this. The squadron flies Jaguar jets, under which are slung pods, carrying a batch of 5 highly sophisticated cameras. Each camera shoots a different angle, and with them all working together, the pilot can cover the whole horizon. The pilots generally fly alone on their missions. 2 jets are easier to shoot at than 1. But then, 41 Squadron is used to facing danger in the air. It's one of the oldest units in service, dating back to the First World War. In dangerous territory, they can still get a good picture up to 10 miles away from the target by using their long-range camera. The results are amazing, as this shot of Sarajevo town centre proves. But how do they get intimate shots like this taken over Iraq? By getting really close to the subject. This means coming in very low and very fast. The Jaguars travel at nearly 500 miles an hour, just 100 feet above the ground. As the pilot approaches the mission destination, he switches on the cameras. A button on the joystick is used to mark specific targets on the film. It's not the ideal conditions to take pictures, but the pilots still get great shots.
We have very little time to think about it, of course, but we still have to think of putting the image in the right place with the sun behind us so that we can see it, and actually rolling the airplane and manoeuvring it so that the photo frames it nicely.
The pilot wastes no time in getting back to base, and the ground crew wastes no time in getting to the film. It's all about speed. Hostile tanks, once spotted, can quickly disappear to somewhere else. They have to be pinpointed. Inside this lab are the fastest film processing machines in the world. They date back to the 60s, but they're still the best in the business. 600 feet of film is developed in just 5 minutes. As soon as the film's off the machine, it's time for the photographic interpreters to take over. Their eyes are second to none. They know instantly what to look for, even with hundreds of feet of film to scan. As the pictures whiz by, they watch out for the areas the pilot has marked with his button. All the photos are in black and white because our eyes are much better at seeing different shades of light and dark without the distraction of color. It's the unusual things that catch their eye, as with a picture like this. In nature, there are very few straight lines, so immediately the interpreters know something's up.
Attention drawn to the shadows thrown by the sun on one particular spot of the print. We can see the barrel of the gun pointing up into the air. These are from 3 pieces of artillery.
Even when all the straight lines are camouflaged and there are no shadows, these guys can still score. How? Because one of the Jaguar's 5 cameras is infrared and detects things by heat. Unlike the other films, this is a continuous image. Here, at a road junction, white outlines stand out distinctly. In this closer picture, the outlines of tanks are clearly visible under their camouflage netting. Individual soldiers show up as white dots because of the heat given off by their heads. The interpreters can even tell what sort of vehicles have passed through the area. How? By a technique called track reading.
Most tracking here is by wheeled vehicles. However, this particular track here, which is quite an angular turn, could indicate a tracked vehicle.
Tracked vehicles usually mean tanks, and tanks mean trouble. Once they've found the tracks, they then trace them round the picture until they find the bad guys. In winter, tanks are easily spotted by the snow thrown up at the sides. Normal vehicles don't do this, and here's the culprit, a Russian-made T-54 battle tank. The reconnaissance intelligence unit's ability to spot those tanks helped bring about peace in Bosnia. But it wasn't only tanks they found. When a UN armoured car disappeared mysteriously one day, 41 Squadron quickly found it. How did they do that? Through a hole in a roof. It had been stolen by the Serbs and was returned soon after this photographic evidence was waved at them.
There are limits to what we can do. We can't take photos looking through brick walls, but then if we're looking for a bunch of tanks, they're not likely to be in somebody's garage. Even then, if they leave the garage door open, we can probably get the photo.
At just a few hours' notice, the whole unit can be packed up and flown to any corner of the world. And wherever they go, you can always bank on them getting amazing snaps. During the Gulf War, they even caught the odd wave from an Iraqi. And who knows who they might snap on a good day? Could this be the man himself? Smile, Saddam, you're on candid camera.
And for once, we can put them in the picture, because with us tonight, a group of chaps from 41 Squadron. Smile, lads, you're in the picture. Right in the film. Well, that's the show for us tonight. Would you join us next week for these stories?
Aiming for a world record, how these high flyers are sharing the challenge.
The case of the mountain sleigh ride to disaster. How this super sleuth solved the mystery.
And it's the biggest animal cast since Noah's Ark. The secrets of these fierce creatures, the stars of the new John Cleese movie.
So all that to look forward to on next week's How Do They Do That?
So from both of us, good night.
Good night.
This is your worst nightmare. One thing I promise you, you will never forget this course.
No food.
Make this the last lesson that you have to learn that way.
No sleep.
I am the tiredest man.
Later.
Wherever.
And no mercy.
We're actually taking them to the very limits of their mental and physical capabilities.
Surviving behind enemy lines. Inside Story gets into training. Tuesday at 10 on BBC1.
It's a bad dream, I think. It's not been nice.
A baby? New arrivals in Ballykissangel.
McMullen P. reporting for duty.
But who's left holding the baby?
Well, I'll lend a hand if you like.
And facing the facts.
So you're going to lecture a bunch of teenagers about sex?
Will the earth move?
It's a net, quick!
Baby love.
He's in safe hands now.
Ballykissangel. Sunday at 8 on BBC1.
Your thoughts on BBC One now with Points of View and Anne Robinson?
Hello.
What on earth happened to Anne Robinson last week? A strange man sat in her chair. We're very distressed about